destroying dozens of homes and buildings. Seth Hawkins, a spokesman for the Georgia Forestry Commission, says weather is a factor in the wildfire spreading.
The blow up, if you will, for this fire definitely is a function of the winds picking up. The humidity is probably about 55% right now. It's probably going to drop down to like low 40s this afternoon. So we get this low humidity, we get this breeze pickup, and these drought conditions. It's just a perfect formula, right, for wildfire to blow up.
There's a mandatory ban on outdoor burning in effect immediately for 91 counties in the lower half of Georgia. On Wall Street, the Dow up by 340 points, the Nasdaq rose 397, the S&P 500 advanced 73. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Meet Morgan Jones. Morgan is about to step into a world unknown to most, thanks to Progressive's Renters Insurance, a place of fresh linens and turn-down service. You see, Morgan temporarily vacated her apartment and has gone to a hotel because a pipe burst in her apartment. A pipe that made her sense of reality and apartment ceiling all come crashing down. Luckily, Morgan checked into Progressive's Protection Zone. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers.
Spring cleaning isn't just for your house, it's for your life. If your job is getting old, it's time to clear the clutter and spring into IT. Go to My Computer Career.
My Computer Career helped me get the skills and certifications I needed to start a new life as an IT professional in months, not years.
Earn the certifications the top employers are looking for right now. Visit mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation to see if it's time to spring into IT. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefits.
Stocks climbed to new records.
Stocks rose to more records on Wall Street Wednesday. The S&P 500 rallied 1% and topped its all-time high set on Friday. The Nasdaq Composite rose 1.6% to also set a record. The Dow rose 0.7%. Boeing, Boston Scientific, and several other big companies gained ground after giving encouraging financial updates. Caution still hung over Wall Street because of uncertainty over the war with Iran. Oil prices rose. The war has significantly restricted shipping traffic in the Strait of Hormuz, and that has cut global oil supplies. Damian Troisi, New York.
A paddle-wielding robot is so adept at playing table tennis that it is posing a tough challenge to elite human players and sometimes defeating them, that according to a new study in the journal Nature. News and analysis at townhall.com. From Washington, I'm Keith Peters.
This program is brought to you in part by Ability Tree Experts. Ability Tree Experts, Houston's leading tree care professionals. Call 281-441-4179.
If you have roof problems, you can sure see them when it rains. This is Deb Tejada from Tejas Roofing. If you see a leak, call me immediately, 281-251-0304. I'll send over the Tejas Roof Repair truck.
That truck has everything our experienced crew needs to fix your roof, right then and there.
The Tejas Roofing crew has been working together fixing leaky roofs for 15 years.
It's not a pretty truck, but it has everything we need to get the job done. I kind of like the way it looks.
Most roofing repairs cost less than $500. Why? Because we find the cause of the leak and repair that leak. We won't try to sell you services you don't need.
And we'll fix it right away because everything we need is in our truck.
Don't put off fixing a leaky roof. Call me at Tejas Roofing and I'll send over the truck. 281-251-0304. When you think of roofing repairs or a new roof, think Tejas Roofing, your Houston roofing company. 281-251-0304. That's Tejas Roofing, 281-251-0304.
Dan Patrick for my friend Louis Flory and Ability Tree Experts.
Spring is here and summer just around the corner, which means it's time to deep root fertilize your trees in addition to spraying for insects and disease. Let Ability Trees help maintain their value and repair all damage. Fed and pruned tree will be less susceptible to wind damage and uprooting. Caring for the beautiful and valuable trees on your property that you can't replace should be done by experts. And the experts I use, it's very clear. It's Ability Tree Experts and Louis Flory, my friend for over 40 years. Gosh, this guy is the pro when it comes to taking care of trees. You know, pruning is important for the health of your trees, and pruning limits resistance to spring storms and allows the sun and fresh air into the canopy. Trees can be in distress several months without showing any signs, so don't wait to protect your investment at 281-441-4179, 281-441-4179, or visit their website at abilitytrees.com. Right now, Ability Trees is giving a deep root feeding with every tree prune. Ability Trees, Houston's leading tree care professional.
Where should I begin?
Can we talk about this?
Say, what are you trying to say?
Beyond the usual controversial talk.
Blah, 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 on and on and on.
Over there. No.
1, 2, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha.
Prepare yourself for Craig.
Okay.
Preparing a mighty new spectacle here.
Articulate, stimulating, hit you right in the... there you go.
We start becoming a team right now.
This is the Craig Collins Show.
Lord Jesus. Oh, Lord, no.
Start talking. Talk fast.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Now your host.
He's a good man.
Craig.
That's right. It is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas, baby. Thrilled to be with you. So much stuff out there to talk about, so many topics to get to. And yet, one of the more interesting things I saw, one of the only things I want to talk about that doesn't have an audio component to it. This is just a rumor mill thing going on online on social media that you get to decide, I get to decide how accurate, how valuable, how truthful this is. But apparently there's several people claiming that James Talarico has, quote, career-ending dirt on both Paxton and Cornyn, and that he's waiting for a Trump endorsement before releasing to harm whichever of the two people winds up being the actual nominee. Here's why this is a really, really dumb thing to think is real. This is why it's my opinion, even though multiple people are putting it out there on social media, that it makes no sense for someone to be sitting on this. Talarico would already be putting this out there in the ether. And maybe there's some version of thinking that if you sit on whatever the damaging, horrible, terrible thing is that you're claiming you can put out about both of these gentlemen, you're just waiting for the pick because maybe one you think is worse than the other. And I don't know if you want to try to influence it. You know what's really interesting to me about that? If it's truthfully for both individuals, and of course, Cornyn, I'm not a fan of him at all. I absolutely think that Paxton should be the nominee. I wish that Wesley Hunt had actually been a part of this runoff race or had done better compared to both of these other candidates. I wish that was a thing. And multiple people have called into the station and said that they think that the amount of money it's going to cost to pay for whatever the campaign is that will be the person who runs against Talarico in Texas, and the ridiculous amount of money that Talarico seems to be somehow raising. I feel like there's going to be a whole bunch of reasons to think there's fraud that happened there. I can't confirm that. I can't tell you anything officially. I just, Democratic versions of behavior. Why wouldn't you think that that's going on here again? But nonetheless, the thing that's even more interesting is the amount of money it'll take for either of those two candidates to resoundingly beat Talarico. And this is here in Texas. I'm relatively new to this state. I've only been here for about a year now, actually. I think it's a little more than a year that I've been living in Texas. And I will tell you that I could never have envisioned from afar moving somewhere like this and having someone like Talarico potentially be the senator, one of the two senators representing the state. I just don't believe it can happen. I don't see it. I feel like anyone, even someone as terrible of a candidate as Cornyn, would still beat Talarico when you get to that level of this candidate versus that candidate, and you're looking at the crazy, insane, ridiculous things that Talarico says he'd like to do if he were given any sense of power in this world, which would be terrible for so many of us. It makes no sense. It boggles the mind, is a way that people would say it. So I don't believe that Talarico can win. I don't believe that whatever the damaging information he's potentially hiding. And here's the other thing to understand about that. Once you go through the primary campaign that these politicians went through, the idea that some other politician on the other side of the aisle is sitting on something that was not used and no one knew about, especially when it comes to Cornyn, during the primary part and even the runoff part of this campaign season, it's kind of ridiculous. That's sort of ridiculous. But I saw multiple rumors, multiple things out there that Talarico is waiting on using some sort of damaging information about either person. It doesn't matter which one we choose, just as long as the Trump endorsement comes along and or, I guess, one of these two individuals actually wins the runoff election, which will happen, of course. And I do still believe all the data that seems to think it's easily going to be Paxton who defeats Cornyn. But I just don't understand the Democratic claim that you'd sit on this at all. Why not just damage these people right now? It's only these two candidates. We're not going to pull a Democratic move and pull Kamala Harris from somewhere and tell her that she's allowed to run, even though she won no primaries. That's not how that works on the Republican side of the aisle. So it's not something I'm all that worried about. I got a call. I'm going to go to audio, but I'll take the call first. Caller, what's your name? Caller,
Professor.
Hey, Jimmy X. You're on the radio. What do you want to say, buddy?
I want to say it's a rope-a-dope.
Yes.
Okay? First of all, the dirt is that John Cornyn is a moderate, and John Cornyn votes a lot with the Democrats, and at one time did not endorse Trump.
True.
That's the dirt. Dirt on Ken Paxton is that he's had multiple affairs outside of his marriage to Angela.
Right.
That's the dirt. Now, James Talarico, on the other hand, is a mainstream moderate Texan. James Talarico, like most Texans, believes there are 6 genders, right? Male, female, and 4 others. Don't know.
Yeah, like most Texans. I love that.
Yeah. James Talarico, a moderate Texan, believes that God is non-binary.
Right.
And finally, James Talarico, like most Texans, believes that abortion is biblical. Oh, and he also follows porn stars on social media and likes and comments on them. Most Texans.
Like most Texans, right. He's got all the priorities. You know, it's really interesting what you just said, the rope-a-dope concept and throwing out the things that Texans already know, because the only reason this story seems to be getting any traction on social media is people who don't live here, people who aren't part of Texas, who don't know the likely attacks on a Paxton that were coming. And part of the reason that some people, I know like yourself and me, really wanted Wesley Hunt to be a more formidable candidate and actually wind up in a position where he's maybe the person going up against James Talarico. He just didn't have the baggage of these other individuals. But most Texans already know this. We're aware of how crappy Cornyn is as a representative of our side of the aisle, and we're aware that Paxton has some issues, both in the infidelity stuff that you've said, that I certainly think will be a challenge that you got to overcome with money, and then also some other potential things. But I went back and I actually watched the acquittal by the Texas Senate for all the accusations of embezzlement and fraud and whatnot, and I really do believe that it was disproven profoundly, and he was targeted for that. But I don't know what else you want to say. It just seems like this story is one that exists beyond Texas, and it won't impact Texas at all.
The real story is that James Talarico is a far-left Marxist idiot that has no business being a candidate for public office in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the real deal. And if you're out there, if anyone's out there listening, just pull up the interview that he did with Joe Rogan, where he literally says abortion is biblical.
Yes.
And that Mary was the first person who believed in choice.
Yes.
Okay? That is despicable.
It's just actually, it's interesting that you referenced that one, because I know I've pulled that audio multiple times before for some shows that I've done, so I'm probably going to play it, the thing with Talarico, because it is insane. He uses the stupid argument, claiming it's a biblical argument, that the angel asked Mary for permission before Mary consented to have, a virgin birth of the Lord Jesus Christ, and that somehow is tied to abortion rights. It was mental gymnastics to a degree that I've never been intoxicated enough in my life to understand, and it was crazy that he said it, and absolutely one of those things that makes him someone who can't possibly win. In this, the only way he wins is convincing people who don't really pay a lot of attention that they're voting against some bad guy, like when the Democrats run nationally against Trump and say that he's evil, and that's the only reason you have to vote against him. They'll try that version of a race in Texas, but I think it'll fail here.
Could not agree more. And but we've got to have our guard up.
We do.
We've got to be energized.
Got to show up.
We've got to get our butts out of our houses and get to the polls and vote.
Yes.
Vote. That's what we need to do. Send a message. Spend another $200 million Marxist Democrats lose again.
Yeah. Amen.
Just like Beto did.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to play the Talarico audio. I do have it. I did find it. I'm going to play the Talarico audio of him on with Joe Rogan. I hope there's no bad words in this. I'll have to hit a button to get rid of them. But it's just crazy, man. But thank you for the call, Jimmy X.
All right, Greg. Take care, brother.
All right, talk to you later. This is the audio that Jimmy X was just talking about. This was probably the most insane thing, which is saying something, by the way. When you're a James Talarico and you say crazy stuff on a regular basis, you sound like another version of Mamdani in New York. You want to socialize everything, take stuff away from people. You brag about being vegan for your campaign, and then when people find out in Texas, because you're not running in Austin anymore, you're trying to run a statewide election, you pretend as though that never came up and you love to eat meat, because I feel like that actually is disqualifying, that you'd be a vegan running for office in this state. I'm kidding a little bit as I say that. But nonetheless, I do want to play this because this is full-on crazy, and this is interpreting something because you want to interpret a certain way, not because anyone of any salt in the world of biblical analysis would tell you that this is an accurate statement. You are trying to turn the birth of Jesus into a way to back your position of being a freedom of choice person, and it makes no sense whatsoever. But I do need to play it because it's unhinged, and these are the things that will lose Talarico the election here, as Jimmy seems to understand easily, and as I certainly understand, because no matter who you're running against, this can't be a representative idea that comes from a state like Texas.
But I say all this in context of abortion because before God comes over Mary and we have the incarnation, God asks for Mary's consent, which is remarkable. I mean, go back and read this in Luke. I mean, the angel comes down and asks Mary if this is something she wants to do. And she says, if it is God's will, let it be done. Let it be. Let it happen. So to me, that is an affirmation in one of our most central stories that creation has to be done with consent. You cannot force someone to create. Creation is one of the most sacred acts that we engage in as human beings. But that has to be done with consent. It has to be done with freedom.
Yeah, that's insane. That's fully insane to go from one thing to another thing, because his logic, if you play it out, would be maybe Mary agrees to have, I feel like it's almost sacrilegious to say this as an example, and yet this is Talarico's logic played out in reality, that the Virgin Mary says yes to God, I'll go ahead and have this child, and then at some point during the pregnancy decides I don't want to have the baby. Talarico seems to think that's okay if you go ahead and change your mind there. If you decide not to have the child, not to have the Lord Jesus Christ, the Savior of the entirety of our civilization, that would be Talarico's position on this, to extend his logic to the story he's putting it into. And obviously that makes absolutely no sense and is as I said, probably sacrilegious. It's just insane to try, because there's two ways. Here's what I'll say about this, because I'm getting mad. So I do need to try to calm myself as much as possible. So here's the thing I will say, and the thing that is probably the most valuable in this discussion, and that is that some people will accept that their positions are not aligned with the values that maybe a lot of the supporters they're looking to vote for them have. And then there's other people, these are more dangerous people in our society, they're more evil people. These people will go a step further, and they'll try to tell you that your value system does back the radical things they think and believe, and they'll twist and turn and try to change things to convince you, and most of us are not dumb enough to fall for this game, but they'll try to convince you that all along the values that you have, you've just misunderstood what they meant. And so they'll try to tell you that within the structure of your belief system, that they're right and the other side is wrong. And that's much more dangerous to me because that's absolutely hoping for you to be dumb enough to go along with whatever the thing is they say and believe, and however it is they try to back it, because they're claiming they're coming at it from an honest position when it couldn't be anything further from the truth. All right, I do want to play one other piece of audio before I take a break. This is Caroline Leavitt. She is having a conversation in front of the White House with different press members. And one of the bigger things she talked about was the indictment that was announced yesterday by Kash Patel. This is a pretty big deal, this indictment and everything going into it. I had the audio. I should have played it yesterday of the actual announcement. But here's Caroline Leavitt being asked a question about this and about how interested the Trump administration is in what's going on with the DOJ and with the FBI. And this isn't even about election fraud, which also there sounds like there's a lot of stuff coming there too. But let's go ahead and play on this audio.
Caroline, does the White House have a response to the DOJ's indictment of the SPLC, as well as the allegations that it was, donated funds were used to actually fund the very hate groups and racist groups that it denounced?
Yeah, I saw the indictment yesterday. I saw the acting attorney general and FBI director do a press conference on it. It was quite shocking to me to learn of the egregious violations of the law the Southern Poverty Law Center was committing. And I think that's a story that should be on the front page of every newspaper in this country because they've obviously been duping their supporters and the American taxpayers for far too long. It's a criminal organization, clearly, and that's not our DOJ saying that or Todd Blanche saying that. That's a grand jury indictment saying.
Yeah, that's a grand jury indictment saying that things look horrible for this organization. And most organizations that we think are fueled by government money do all kinds of embezzling and fraud and other stuff. The story itself, the headline of it is not all that shocking or surprising. What is shocking and surprising is how little media coverage it gets, which I think is what Caroline is pointing out too, because of how important it is for us to remove as many of these avenues to steal our money and put it places that it should not be, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, I have another piece of audio about this. It was something that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was saying that I thought was pretty interesting. So why don't we take a break? We'll come back to that audio and some other things. This is the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the Voice of Texas. More coming up in just a little bit.
Where we go in life matters, and what we do matters, and we know that taking the wrong road won't produce the best outcomes. Hi, I'm Kathy with Baker Mortgage, and we want you to take the right path when it comes to your mortgage. We live in a world of information overload, but always consider the source, and these are not generally going to be from your big bank or a random offer that comes across your screen. Remember, you're always going to get a better deal on one that you go looking for than one that comes looking for you. You need to deal with somebody who gives a you-know-what, whether or not you're happy in the end. At Baker Mortgage, we do it right. We haven't been around for 68 years because we're lucky. We don't sell CDs, insurance, or anything else. We just provide a great mortgage experience. Isn't that what you're looking for? Call us at Baker Mortgage. I promise you'll be glad you did. We're at 281-313-MOVE or go directly to bakermortgage.com.
Equal housing lender. License number 263213.
Hi, I'm Tommy Mello with Garage Door Doctors. My mom recently moved into a new home with a builder-grade garage door. Noisy, flimsy, and not built to last, so we're fixing that. Mom, you're my hero. When I was growing up, she worked 3 jobs just to save our house.
And helped you build this company.
Now I'm giving her a beautiful new garage door that's built to last. The garage is 40% of your home's curb appeal. When it looks good and it works great.
Life is good. Thanks, Tommy.
From repairs to upgrades, call Garage Door Doctor today.
Mattress Mac here in the Mac Z-Cliner. I'm recovering from surgery thanks in large part to this miracle chair, the Mac Z-Cliner. You can sit in it, you can recline in it, you can watch TV in it, you can eat in it, you can sleep in it. It goes to zero gravity position. The Mac Z-Cliner helped me recover. It also has heat and massage, a place to charge your cell phone. Come out to Gallery Furniture, buy a Mac Z-Cliner before your surgery. Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, or after your surgery, Gallery Furniture delivers tonight, and you'll sit and sleep great tonight.
This is Kevin O'Hara with O'Hara & Company Real Estate. Our country's founding fathers drafted a document that is the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. My friends at O'Hara & Company Real Estate, we believe we're at a precipice in time where we must take back our country. We must stand up for our freedoms or lose them forever. Please don't sit idle and let it slip away. Don't let anyone force you to do something you choose not to. As JFK said, if not us, who? If not now, when? If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, give O'Hara & Company Real Estate a call at 281-373-3393, 281-373-3393, or look us up on the web at o'harare.com. I'm Kevin O'Hara. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
In my agency, we had 80 people assigned to do program integrity and fraud detection over 50 states and 6 territories. It wasn't enough. The Biden administration came in and fired all but 6 of them. My predecessor, Mr. Becerra, told his staff, we don't do program integrity. We should focus on enrollments. And that's what happens. And so now you've got all of these problems, and I'll give you one example. The hospices in Los Angeles. We've shut down 500 of them. We have not gotten one call from a congressperson or one call from a patient. Why? Because those hospices did not exist. Right. They were signing up patients. They were getting patient IDs, signing them up, and charging us $6,000 a month for that patient. How did we detect them all?
Here, I'll stop it right there. The Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. That's actually probably, no matter how much you thought of it as important, more insane and important than you think. Like a more valuable thing that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said in testimony, that they shut down 500 different hospice centers in Los Angeles, 500, and not one phone call, not one patient that's like, hey, what happened to this place that I was going to? There is something so ridiculous about the idea that fraud is this unapologetic, this blatant, this out in the open, and that California is even trying to pass laws now to stop Nick Shirley's of the world showing up there and doing certain things with video cameras on social media as an independent contractor. They're actually trying to pass laws that make it much more financially difficult and also potentially legally difficult for people to do that because they're terrified. They're terrified of the outing of this system being as easy as it actually is for anyone paying attention. This is not a you have to look under several different rocks, dig deep, find the needle in the haystack version of a thing. You can show up to any one of those 500 places before they were shut down by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You can show up to any of them and knock on the door, as Nick Shirley did in Minnesota, and find no one there, no valuable version of business operations, even if it's the middle of the day. So it's just in plain sight, and they're mad that people are starting to pay attention to this. And it is somewhat terrifying to me that this is the kind of thing that takes this long for people to start to, and I guess the right word is wake up in these scenarios and pay more attention, because the Democratic Party is the one perpetrating most of the waste, fraud, and abuse in the world of our government, because they're the ones telling you they want more government. I know there's a bunch of Republicans who are on this same, gravy train. I'm not pretending as though it's not any of them. There's a whole lot of corrupt people on both sides of the political aisle. That's why you want America first and not America last, which a whole lot of politicians, John Cornyn among them, absolutely seem to believe in. They believe in America last and themselves first, and or anyone else first other than us, the people that deserve to be first. All right, I want to play this audio. It's a little quick news update from Fox talking about how President Trump had let Martha McCallum and some people at Fox know some things about what's going on with Iran, what will and won't motivate him. I thought this was actually pretty interesting. Before I hit play on it, I will tell you that I'm someone who believes the war in Iran really should end soon. I refuse to allow it to end in a way that hurts us. I won't do, President Trump should not do, no one should do the exit that Biden did in Afghanistan. It's easy to keep comparing the two because that exit was horrible. It was horrible for all involved, for the military men and women that lost their lives, for the long-term the long amount of time we spent in Afghanistan, and the likelihood that terrorists were just taking right over as soon as we walked back out of there. Like, there were so many pieces to that puzzle that were so incorrectly put together that to allow that to happen after the start of this conflict in Iran, that a lot of presidents were too afraid to do, and Trump was the first one in a while that didn't just say something, but actually did something. You have to see it to completion. I do believe that. So I would not advocate for us to end it today regardless of the terms. And it appears that President Trump is on the exact same page, according to insider information from Fox News.
Just a few moments ago, President Trump told our own Martha McCallum there is no time pressure on a deal with Iran and that politics, including the midterm elections, won't drive the timeline. He's also calling Iran's decision to halt executions of female protesters a good sign as both sides look to reset talks.
Yeah, by the way, that is a good sign. Not executing people is something that the United States would advocate for. And so it's something that shows, I don't know, some level of participation in trying to make the United States happier with you as a terrorist place that does terrorist things and funds terrorism. I know I oversimplified it there. But nonetheless, that's not going to be enough. I will also say this. There was a breaking news story about somebody getting fired in the Navy. You did hear about how last night Iran did some provocative things in the Strait of Hormuz waterways. These are things that they shouldn't be able to do because the U.S. Navy should be in full control there and preventing Iran from any sort of aggressive behavior. And so on the heels of that story, you then see something that came out, I think, this morning, or maybe even actually just a few hours ago, where somebody else has been fired. And I'm not advocating for military men and women to lose their jobs, even at the highest levels. I have the utmost respect for people who serve this country. But Pete Hegseth thought that someone in charge of the Navy wasn't doing things the right way. And on the heels of a story where you don't understand how with the might of our Navy, we're allowing anything to be done by Iran in any of those waterways, I guess you can connect the dots to where this might make sense. I don't think they said that those things are connected, but there was a belief for a short amount of time that this individual had resigned, and that is not true. That Fox News was able to report, from sources that they have internally that this was a firing, not a quitting. Here we go.
Jackie, another breaking story tonight, a shakeup at the Pentagon, another one, the Navy Secretary departing his post. What do we know?
Yeah, the Pentagon spokesman just announced Navy Secretary John Phelan is departing the administration effective immediately, saying, quote, "We wish him well in his future endeavors." It was not immediately clear from this post if he resigned or was fired, but Fox News has learned in the last few moments that he was fired. He had a very close relationship, apparently, with Donald Trump Jr. and just hosted a bridal shower for his fiancée this past weekend in Palm Beach. Phelan was confirmed by the Senate just over a year ago. Undersecretary Hung Cao is to assume the role of acting secretary. This marks the 34th military officer that Secretary Hegseth has fired since taking over the agency.
Look, I believe that you need people that are going to do certain things, and that if the people that are in a position of power at some point show you they're not going to do what you want them to do, you need new people. It's just a thing. I don't know if the military men and women who have been let go over the time that Hegseth has been there are actually the source of a problem. But I do know that you get to evaluate who comes in next, who the next person is, how they handle the role, whether it's the interim individual in charge or someone that gets put in that position officially next. And this story just the other day, just last night, about Iran doing something where they're boarding ships and acting in a way that you would think the U.S. Navy would not allow them to act when we say that we're in control of all of the ports of entry around that country. And that's the biggest way that we create leverage. Now, I'll say one other thing about this, and I'm not military. I don't understand this as well as maybe the military men and women who listen to the show probably get this. But I will say that I wonder if discretion some point becomes something that you have to consider as someone actually on these boats, on these ships, and you can't disobey an order from somebody above you. So if somebody above you gives you an order and you got to do a thing, you're not allowed to disobey it unless, of course, you think it's illegal or something, which, of course, the seditious six tried to convince people that everything that Trump said somehow fell under that category. But nonetheless, maybe that's why people are losing their jobs, is because there was a moment where someone chose to be more discreet, to not take a provocative action because it might have caused loss of life, and you don't necessarily want to see that, especially during a ceasefire. I'm aware we're under a ceasefire. However, there is a version of being defensive that might make sense if you see someone else acting a certain way that maybe, because I will say this, if the ceasefire is one-sided, which it appears that it might be, at least recently, then there's no value to it whatsoever. We don't need to stand down anymore. They broke it. That's what we say publicly, and then we go ahead and act accordingly. So we'll see what happens there. All right, another story that I thought was interesting. This is a little bit of a deeper dive, although I shouldn't even call it that, to be honest, because it's not that it's a story you might not have heard of. It's just a story where an update hasn't existed for a little bit. But here, I'll hold that for a second. Let me get to a call before I actually throw this on the air. Caller, what's your name?
Mike.
Mike, where are you calling from?
Tomball.
What do you want to say, bud?
This fiasco of the Strait of Hormuz needs to end. And what I mean by that, Iran is attacking these tankers with these gunboats, small gunboats.
Yes.
They need to line destroyers up beside those tankers, and when those little gunboats come out, blast them out of the water.
Sure.
Just blast them out of the water. Don't worry about it. When the gunboats approach, take those big guns on those ships and just evaporate them.
I agree with
and if they do that enough, Iran will get the message.
You'd think they'd have gotten the message by now. You think with the amount of things that I think we've done, the fact that we sunk their actual Navy, that they would. But you're right. They keep finding some avenue, some way to be disruptive, because the goal for them is to just do whatever the heck they want. And there have to be more moments of, this is the reality of the world you live in and the power of our military. So I fully agree. They should be blowing these boats out of the water the same way they were blowing up drug boats that were flying toward our coast.
Full agree. And it will take the Navy and air power to do this.
Sure.
Because there's not enough ships to escort these tankers, but there's enough air power over there to do it. And we don't need the allies. It'd be nice if our allies would join us in doing this, but they don't want to. So be it. Use American air power to take out those gunboats as well.
Yep.
Like I said, Iran's just not go. They're radicals. They're not going to get the message until you totally. And then what they need to do is target the ports where those gunboats come out and blow them to smithereens as well.
Sure, I agree. Anything else you want to say, Mike?
No, that's about it, except I want to make one comment about the administration.
Go ahead.
The president said last night he was doing an indefinite pause, and now it's 2 to 3 days. They need to coordinate their messages better. It looks kind of namby-pamby when they do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. I think that sometimes, but here's what I'll say about the difference between, say, this administration and the other one, the Biden administration, and when they had competing messages. You felt often like the people that were saying something that were not actually the former president were actually the authorities in the room. Like the thing they were saying is actually what was going on. And if Biden said anything, it made no sense and everybody dismissed it. When I hear Trump speak, I take that as the official word. I don't necessarily take the word of anyone else as official. So whatever he says seems like it's what we're probably actually doing. And sometimes I feel like that political machine is trying to push him to say or do something else. And I don't think he ever plays ball in that arena. So that's why I sometimes think the messaging is mismatched, is that Trump doesn't give a crap what official off the record or on the record says something. If it's not his directive, it's not what we're doing.
Yeah, he shouldn't put up with that crap. If he's the president, I don't always agree with him, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I don't agree with him on tariffs, for example, and some other things, but he's in charge. He should put his foot down and say, this mess has got to stop, because it does look namby-pamby.
I know.
As I said.
Well, let me ask you that, because you just said the tariff thing real quick. I'm just curious. If tariffs were actually in place of federal income tax, would you like them more?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I'm an economist by trade.
I got you.
If you eliminated the federal income tax, tariffs would make more sense. I agree with you on that. But let me say this about tariffs.
Yeah.
There's a place for tariffs, especially when you're dealing with the Chinese, when they subsidize their stuff. There's nothing wrong with tariffs to bring it to equilibrium. I have no problem with that.
Sure.
But I don't like tariffs as a threat or an economic tool. And everyone keeps saying, tariffs, cut the deficit. But the problem is that's on the revenue side of the house. It doesn't help the spending side of the house.
I know. I get it. And tariffs are essentially a tax on the people, because the goods that we take in here, who's ever bringing them in will likely transition that price to us. The best way for us to combat that is just not buy that stuff. And obviously, the other incentive to tariffs is to create more things here in the United States. So say we fast forward 5 years, there's no federal income tax, and stuff that's made here is way cheaper than stuff made other places. I think your opinion fully changes as to the value of tariffs, right?
Yeah, I agree. If you eliminate the income tax, tariffs is a totally different subject at that point. I agree with you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the call, Mike. That's actually the way that our country made money at some point back in the day before the federal income tax became a thing. So it's not a crazy plan for anyone that hears it and thinks it's insane. It's literally the way things used to work quite a while ago. All right, caller, what's your name?
Rusty.
Rusty, where are you calling from?
Beautiful Northwest Houston.
Beautiful. What do you want to say, Rusty?
Oh, it is beautiful. Anyway, that's why the Democrats are going to really do so good in the next election, because it's kind of a groundswell to put a block in front of President Trump. You know that at the end of the month, he's got to report to Congress about the war and try to get funded.
Yes. I understand that at some point, in order for it to be like an official act of war and for money to keep flowing the way it needs to flow, at some point Congress is obviously going to need to be involved. I'm more interested in something you just said a second ago, though. You said a groundswell of people that want to put a block on Trump. Where are you hearing that from? Who's telling you that that's a thing that's happening?
They've won. Well, they won Virginia last night. And
you know what else happened there, right? In Virginia,
about 13 or 19. How many elections just like that have happened since?
Let's play. I'm going to put you on hold.
Go
for just
ahead.
a second. Hold on.
Again.
No, hold on, Rusty. I'm going to put you on hold for a second, but I want you to hear this. I'm going to play audio from a Virginia Circuit Court judge that ruled that the Democratic redistricting plan in Virginia is unconstitutional, which may very well shoot a big hole in the narrative that a whole bunch of people are voting for something and they're unhappy with what's going on. So we'll play this audio first, and then we'll come back, and here we go.
But first, breaking tonight, a circuit court in Virginia ruled a short time ago, within the past 2 hours, that the redistricting referendum passed by voters yesterday is unconstitutional.
Whoopsie.
The judge is now blocking certification of the election and denying a motion to stay pending appeal. Virginia's Democratic Attorney General responding by posting that he plans to appeal that. Correspondent Mark Meredith has all the details tonight, live from
Well, hold on to Mark Meredith. Let's bring Rusty back in. So the political celebration of the left in Virginia might be upended by the very likely scenario in which it gets rejected in the courts because people thought that it was deceptive and it's unconstitutional, beyond just being written deceptively.
It's already been adjudicated. Last month or something, Texas just won its right.
No. You misunderstand. This Virginia Circuit Court today rejected what happened in Virginia.
They're blocking it.
Because they think it's not been adjudicated. So here, I want to correct you.
Texas.
The Virginia state constitution and the Texas state constitution don't control each other. So anything that gets decided here in Texas, the Supreme Court does, but it's not been challenged there yet. Anything that's been challenged in Texas, the Virginia case has been challenged in the Supreme Court? No, it hasn't.
Texas has just last month.
Yeah, but the argument being made is at a state level in Virginia. They're saying it's against the state's constitution.
Well, that's what we said. That's what the Democrats said here in Texas.
Right, but the Constitution will matter specific to the state. They won't use Texas's decision to validate what happened in Virginia. That's not at all logical. That's not how the legal system works.
I wonder.
Because the Virginia state constitution is different than ours. It's different, and the
nobody is supposed to redraw the districts in the middle of
the legal
cycle.
argument being made in Virginia is going to be different than the one being made here. But it's going to be made at a state level. It's not been challenged at a federal level yet. So it would be like
I'm sure
saying,
you know that.
What's that? Go ahead.
I said, I'm sure you know that.
What do I know?
You're the reasons they're going to be making in front of the Supreme Court.
Well, they're not in front of the Supreme Court
yet. You hope it doesn't go to the Supreme Court because that way it'll just keep it dragging on and on and on.
I got to be honest, man. I like you. You seem like a very nice, respectful person. You definitely don't believe a lot of the things I believe. We have a lot of things we disagree on. But the thing that I think is interesting about some of the stuff you say is you just barrel through. Like you said a second ago that the Texas decision is going to somehow impact the Virginia decision. And right now, that couldn't be further from the truth. What they're going to decide in their state is completely independent of what's been decided about this state. If it gets to the Supreme Court, if it gets to the Supreme Court, who knows? But right now, that's completely illogical. And it sounds like sometimes your brain is telling you the Democrats have to be right. They have to win here. And you find an avenue toward that. Because the other thing a second ago.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, I'm not. The other thing you said a second ago about wanting to block Trump. Are you trying to tell me that you think a lot of conservatives want to see that happen? They want to see Trump's ability to.
No, the people in the middle.
See, this is an interesting fallacy. Thank you, Rusty, for the call. Oftentimes, there are people who think that they know what everybody in the middle thinks, and they think that that's the version of people that they care about. They don't care how many people are on the right, how many people are on the left, how many people they think are radical, because anyone, and Rusty might actually believe he's in the middle. Just news for him, he is not on the middle. He is on the left. But anyone who thinks that their opinion is on the middle will always assume that the majority of people agree with them on whatever it is. And so I love that argument all the time, especially when it's an anti-Trump argument being made by a Trump derangement syndrome person, that the people in the middle don't like him anymore. The people in the middle feel this way. And some people will point to polls to try to validate that. There's approval number polls for President Trump that seem to show that he's lost about 10, 11% of support with people who approve of the job he's doing compared to the beginning of his term. Now, there's a few things missing contextually in that discussion. First and foremost being that this is fairly common, that presidents lose support of the middle or support of the opposing side after they get elected, where someone might have said, I'm going to wait and see. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Those people then obviously say they hate stuff. But more important than not, and I've said this before, polls are notoriously terrible at predicting anything. And the reason they are so terrible at that is things change between now and when we actually vote in November in a midterm election. And also a whole lot of people who are of a certain side of the aisle don't think polls are legitimate anyway, so they don't actually participate. I am far more likely as a conservative to hang up on someone saying they're doing a poll than someone on the other side. Because someone on the other side is desperate to undercut Trump. They want to convince you that everybody doesn't like Trump, that everybody hates him. The podcaster people out there who are stunningly changing what seem to be very conservative, very pro-Trump opinions to do the opposite, they think they're reading the tea leaves correctly. They think they're seeing the sentiment change in our society where people are going, further and further away from the current president of the United States. And every time they've told us that, they've been wrong. Every time. Trump couldn't win in 2016, and then he won. Trump wasn't going to win in 2024. He won. Trump didn't win, is what they told us, in 2020. And now, potentially, there's going to be more and more stuff coming out. There was an announcement about this today that might help demonstrate that actually some things were pretty bad, fraudulent. Some bad things happened in the case of the election. I wonder if people like Rusty will be able to hear that. If mainstream media, which will try its best to ignore this, eventually has to admit that there's merit to some of the claims of election fraud or election rigging, whatever term you want to use, changing rules at the last minute in ways that were illegal, and then abusing the rules that you changed, especially when it comes to mail-in balloting. If there's some sort of court case that definitively proves this and people get arrested and thrown in the hoosgow, is there going to be a point where the Democrats actually think that's real, or will they convince themselves that it's not? Well, they convince them there's no way that this is real, this is crazy, this is terrible. I imagine it'll be the latter, and that won't really be so great for our society. All right, I got to take one more break. I'm running out of time. I do want to do some fun stuff. I like doing lighthearted stuff in the show. I call them palate cleansers or the quick four-ish. That coming up in just a bit. It's the Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas.
Hi, Hi, this is Paul Betancourt. Property values may have peaked, making 2026 a must year to protest your property taxes. Sign up with my excellent Betancourt tax advisor team at btanow.com, as our experienced senior property tax agents and customer service matter. The tax man says do it now.
Sign up with Betancourt Tax Advisors by going online to btanow.com or by calling Paul's professional property team at 713-263-6100.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm, and Chuck McDowell definitely not an attorney. This is Chuck. If someone talked you into buying something really silly and you want to get out of that silly little thing, my advice, get the facts. Call me and I'll send you our timeshare exit kit absolutely free. Inside, you'll learn how timeshare works and all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley now for your free exit information kit. 800-909-9696. 800-909-9696.
How was your break? It was great until I stopped for gas. Prices have gone up almost $1 with no end in sight. I might have to start watching how much I drive.
That's exactly why I use Upside. I never pay full price for gas with the free Upside app.
Upside?
Yes, Upside. It's the free app that gives you cash back just for buying the gas you're already buying. So even with the rising gas prices, I'll never have to limit how much I drive.
Does that actually add up to anything?
Just last year, I made over $200 with the Upside app.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Upside app right now.
Download the free Upside app to earn cash back on the gas you're already buying. Use promo code STATION for an extra 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime, right to your bank account, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code STATION for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first fill up. That's STATION.
Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions.
Yeah. You know, I just read that this war is estimated to have already cost us $50 billion. $50 billion, which is more money than this country has spent since World War II. And then in 2027...
No, I'm already going to stop it. I can't. This is Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas. That is wildly wrong in all accounts. Mostly the account where it's more money than we spent in other conflicts. If you actually adjust the amount of money to be equivalent to today's dollar, because it's quite a bit different. It's trillions of dollars on any of those conflicts. It's not even in the ballpark of true. Plus the 50 billion she's referencing there. But it's just hilarious. People are calling it an error in girl math. If you don't know what girl math is, people online, mostly women, say that they use math to convince themselves to buy things. And it's not traditional math, not the way you and I know it. It's a version of creating excuses via some form of magical math that says that you're not actually spending money buying stuff. Somehow you're saving money because you're not buying more stuff later. I don't know what it is, but I love that that's the shot being thrown at Sonny Hostin there of The View. Even if some people will say it's horrible and terrible and potentially sexist, the reason I like it is because it's women who started the trend of being proud of their girl math. And Sonny does seem to be doing a whole lot of Democratic math in claiming that this war is more expensive than World War II. That's just uniquely dumb for her to say. All right, let's do some quick 4-ish topics before we get out of here. Several of them. Today is Earth Day. Only 26% of Americans know that. I saw this out there. Earth Day, I think, is supposed to be a day where we try to celebrate by doing things that are good for the planet, good for Mother Earth. The reason most people might not care or pay attention to Earth Day is how many of these sorts of things are used to scream a political opinion at me. Because it's not just like, hey, let's go to the park or plant a tree. It's, hey, let's talk about how this and this is terrible and these politicians are doing this and this horribly and awfully wrong. My wife wore green clothes today. She said, in honor of Earth Day, which is great. I didn't know you did that, Betty. That's awesome. But yeah, there's a version of this conversation, I think, that annoys enough people now that we don't talk about what we probably do agree with. Like, of course, I want the planet to be good. Of course, I want to do good things, plant more trees, whatever it might be. It's just, it becomes so quickly political and annoying that some of these things are harder to discuss than they should be in a society where people all want to get mad at each other and find ways to rage bait and essentially blame each other for whatever the problems is that they see going on in the world. 37% of Americans would rather stay thirsty than drink water they don't like. This is a weird story. I didn't know how to understand this. 65% of Americans surveyed said they're picky about their water consumption, whether it's bottled, whatever it might be, that there's certain things they like, certain things they don't like. One of the biggest decision makers for people in the world of water was smell. If they thought it smelled weird, they didn't like it. But 37% of people asked the crazy question, like, are you thirsty in the desert in need of water? Are you drinking it if it's not a kind you like? And people are dumb enough to say no. They're like, I'd stay thirsty. I don't know if I'd die. I think that probably if you up the ante, hopefully that 37% is going to shrink to a smaller number of morons that would say they'd rather die than drink whatever bottled water it is they don't like. But I love that idea because that's, to me, so reflective of a generation that I don't even come from. I'm a millennial. I'm an older millennial, which to many people is a very young person still in our society. But I drank from the hose, baby. That happened. You're on your bike riding around in the neighborhood and you get thirsty. It's not even your hose. Neighbor's hose, doesn't matter. Water was coming out of a place in somebody's backyard and you drank it and you didn't care and you kept playing. That was a thing that used to exist in our society. It feels like it needs to come back for us to be even remotely close to healthy and happy and all the things we should be. I saw this story. I thought this was interesting. A Papa John's customer was upset over a tipping reminder on their pizza box. There's a lot of bad words in the audio that I can't play, but I think I have a cleaned up version that I can play of someone being so sick of the amount of times we're told to tip that if your pizza box tells you better remember to tip the driver, that's too much for them. I'm not saying this is the right approach to it. I'm not advocating for the person who loses their mind. I am saying that I'm also sick of being asked to tip everywhere I go all the time, as I think most people are. But here's some audio.
Delivery fee is not a tip. Please reward your driver for outstanding service. Tips aren't paychecks. Pay your employees.
There were words bleeped out of that or just missing, and then other horrible things. I do agree with that person. Yeah, pay your employees more money. Don't count on me having to tip everybody all the time. I think the thing that broke us was the ability for anybody to use an iPad or some form of technology to take more credit card payments than maybe they took before. So occasionally you see that tip thing pop up while you're like paying for tires somewhere. You're like, why would I tip in this situation? Why would I tip in that situation? I think the fact that the app or the program or whatever it is that a lot of people use is so consistently asking us for money that it's made us quite annoyed. Because you should tip your pizza delivery driver. You should give them money. It should not be just whatever the cost was to get out there or the delivery fee that the company might actually be taking and not you. Like there's situations where tipping in the society we live in is pretty common. We've been doing it for a long time this way. We don't need to rewrite the playbook here. So I do think that's kind of crazy. But I get the annoyance. I do, because there's so many times now where people are asking you for money, and they're asking you for money in all kinds of ridiculous ways, and you're just absolutely sick of it, and you don't want to do it anymore. One other crazy viral story I saw, a few students in Kansas at a high school there decided to ride to their prom in the Wienermobile, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. Whenever this goes viral, it's always a joke. Let's play a little bit of that audio.
One of my buddies was like, can we rent this thing? And I was like, bro, what if we just ask about prom? Right. What if they take us? It's tomorrow. Like, that'd be insane.
Yeah. It was a little light bulb. And we were like, well, what time is prom? And from there, we checked our schedule, and we were able to make it happen. Hearing about prom, I mean, I have such special memories, like, with my high school experience with my prom, and knowing that we could add the weenie magic of the big dog to it, we figured it had to be done.
I'm not going to play that part at the end there because out of context it sounds very strange. But those are even the people who sound very young in charge of the Wienermobile, helping pick kids up and bring them to school. An interesting story to say the least. All right, that's it. That's the whole show. I'm out of here. See you guys tomorrow. The Craig Collins Show, KSEV, KGBC, the voice of Texas.
You're listening to the voice of Texas, AM